Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Nuance Needed podcast. I wanted to give you a quick overview of what the episode is going to look like. Sam and I kind of made this episode lessons we learned from 2025. Sam has a lot of really powerful reflections about moving to New York and the culmination of sort of this work she's been doing with deconstructing her religion and really trying to create a life that works for her, which is super powerful. And we get into a conversation also about sort of how single people and people who are married or in relationships or have children, how their lives sometimes can be different. And there's a lot of really great convo in here about if you are partnered or married and you have friends who are not, how you can bridge that gap with them and how you can support them if, especially they've been to a million baby showers, weddings, bridal showers, all of that stuff. So that is a fun little aside we get into. I also talk about my year and dealing with sort of my mom's cancer diagnosis and how that's changed things. And we end up talking about joy and fun and mischief and how we can survive these trying times. And it ends up being, I think, an inspirational, great episode. So this episode is what we sort of do best, where we talk about one thing and we end up on a journey talking about depths and layers of different things. Also, quick favor, if you love Nuance Needed, one of the best things you can do to support the podcast is to rate or give us a review, or if you're on Spotify, leave us a comment. Tell us what you like and what you want more of. This helps other people find the podcast, and especially with reviews, it is truly getting consistent reviews is one of the best things that can help a podcast continue to do well so that Sam and I can keep making these and keep producing them for you. So we hope you enjoy this episode. As always, would love to hear from you. Reach out to us on Instagram or send us an email. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Nuance Needed podcast. I'm Amanda White.
And this is Sam Dalton. What have I learned from 2025? That is a big question.
I feel like you've learned a lot.
Well,
you've done a lot.
I've been self-conscious of this because I sometimes am afraid that I am talking about the move too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want people to think that I'm trying to browbeat it into them that I have
that
life.
You moved?
Yeah, that I moved. Did you know? In case you're listening to this, I moved.
I am a New York girly.
For the second time in a year, I moved my whole life. No, I think it's not even necessarily the move itself that I've been the most reflective of. I feel like 2025 as a whole has been the culmination of a bunch of things that I've been learning over the last, I would say probably 5 to 7 years. And that's why this move has been a big deal for me, because I can imagine someone looking from the outside and it's Jesus Christ, you moved back to where you grew up. I get it. And I totally empathize with that. And you don't have to listen to this if that is how you feel. However, for me, if I had to summarize what this year has been, it's that the really, really hard work does pay off. And I think there were some times over the last, I would even extend this really the last decade, I would say that about 10 years ago is when a lot of the seeds of this started to get planted in my mind of the deconstruction, the realizing I wasn't happy in Utah, but I started to try to do a million little things to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Anything I could to avoid the most uncomfortable options, which is what I knew deep down in my soul I needed to do. But I didn't have the emotional wherewithal to make that come together yet. Even when you're working and you're doing clinical work and you can tell people yeah, I know this work pays off. I've seen it in other people's lives. I know it does. I know it does. But then when you haven't seen the payout yet for yourself, it can feel hard sometimes to be yeah, no, I'm in it too. But then you have to be professional and be yeah, and in the back of your mind, you're I don't know. I don't think I can, but I believe you can.
Yes.
I don't know about me, but I believe in you. And I went through that for probably a 6-month period professionally where I felt like a huge fraud. When I would talk to my clients, I was kind of I don't think I'm helping you at all, which is not true because I am what I would like to think is a good clinician. But when you're going through something hard yourself, and your job is to help other people through things that are very similar to what you're going through, it can be a little confusing. And so I think now I feel very confident in being able to say, no, like this works. Like there is a world where you can get to the other side and feel like you are actually living life for you, and that you can get to a space where you feel happy and you feel content, and not like a fix all, life isn't perfect, because that's not the goal, but that you will be able to be in a position where life doesn't feel so like daunting and overwhelming. And I think the last month of being here is the first time in my life I've actually like experienced that I've like arrived somewhere like really special as a result of like things that I started working on a long time ago. And I think what is so hard about this work is it's so not tangible. Like it's not, you can't see it happening. You can't see the change fermenting or fomenting, whatever the word is, a lot of the time. And now I've like really noticed it in myself. And that's been like a very humbling realization, I think. Like I'm not sharing this from a space of like, oh, I have all of this figured out and it's perfect again. But to be like, wow. Like if I went and told 2020 me that at the very end of 2025, this is the position I would be in. This is what you're doing for work. This is the social situation you're in. This is the professional situation you're in. This is living situation. I don't know. I think if I had known back then that this was the possibility, I would have screwed it up.
Oh.
Because I think that's why you can't know.
Yeah.
Like, because I was not in a place to accept that.
Yeah.
Like I would have been like, no, there's no way. Like that's not possible because of A, B, C, D. And no, I want to be here. I don't, like I think I wasn't confident enough to step into that space.
Well, I think I know how you said, like, I don't know if I should keep sharing about the move and stuff. Like, I think though what's so great is you're not just like, I got into a relationship and I'm getting married and now everything's perfect.
Right.
Or like, I'm now going to have a baby and everything's perfect. Like, I think it's a cool thing to celebrate. You're not even saying like, I'm making tons of money now and it's perfect or anything. You're talking about a very, like, something that we should be able to celebrate that I think we don't. And I think it's a really good example of that.
No, I actually really appreciate you saying that, because it is hard as a single person to not have hit like the typical milestones that normally are the big celebratory, everybody comes together for you moments.
Yeah.
But this was like monumental for me in a lot of ways.
Like, you're allowed to set a personal goal.
Yeah.
And be really proud of yourself for it.
Yeah. And even like in April, when this option even first presented itself, but we didn't even think that it was going to be a real thing, I even had like some doubt then of like, oh, I don't know if I could I really do that? And in August, I just was like, no, I can, and I will. And it's all fine. And it's all working. Yeah. And I've been trying really, really hard to allow myself to feel celebratory of myself, because of how much I've sorted through and been through and come out on the other side of on my own.
Yeah. I mean, they don't make cards like, congratulations for deconstructing your religion.
No.
Like, congratulations for setting a personal goal, move it, like doing all like, that's what I think is cool about it. I wish we celebrated that stuff more. And I know people have asked us, and we talked a little bit about it, I think on the podcast before, of just how people have talked about, how do I celebrate my single friends? How do I show up for them? And obviously everyone's different. We can't be like, every friend of yours that's single wants a birthday party.
Right, exactly.
I don't know, but I don't know. Maybe that is a good question that would be helpful for you to answer, Sam, of what are things people can do if they have a single friend and, they feel like they default into not celebrating them and the person has been to 45 bridal showers and weddings and baby showers and all of that.
I think let them talk about their life and don't just sit there silently.
Yeah.
Right? Like kind of almost I'm letting you get this out of the way and then we're going to talk about the real big girl problems.
I think that's a really good point.
Right? I have been in positions where I found it feels like my concerns are being tolerated. And then it's like I've been in groups where everybody is either in a committed partnership, married, or has a child, if not multiple children.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the only one that was single. And there were times where it felt like I would kind of talk about things or say things. And then it was almost like, well, the big kids are going to talk now. And I hated that.
Yeah.
Because what I was going through mattered. And thankfully, for anybody who's like still in my life close has obviously not treated me like that because I don't tolerate that anymore. But yeah, like if you have a friend who's single and you feel like you haven't checked in with them in quite some time, or they just got out of a long-term relationship, or they have decided to like end their marriage, whatever the situation is, let them talk about work. Ask them about their work. Ask them about the things that they're doing. Ask them about their travel plans. Like talk to them about those things and actually ask them follow-up questions.
Yeah, I think it's also like culture, right? Reinforces this. And then we act like certain things are like, I just think context matters. Like everything, like I'm going to always think having one child is really hard because that's all I have. Where someone with 4 children is like, one is easy. It's so hard because everything's relative.
Right. And I totally agree with you. And I think as someone who is single, I do find that there is an assumption that the things that I do are easier.
It's funny with marriage, though. Like, I get it a bit with kids, but it's funny with marriage because it's like,
oh, it's easier.
A lot of things are easier.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying people don't have serious problems in their marriages or that there aren't like, if getting divorced has like an impact on you, but in a lot of ways, getting married is easier. Logistically.
Right. And I think there would be some people that kind of like, oh, the family dynamics and my in-laws and navigating this and navigating that. And I see, this is why you and I are close because you gas me up.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think your life is great. And I'm like, can we trade for a day? I just hate that it's like married women versus single women.
I know. And I'm with you.
Moms versus non-moms.
I'm with you.
We all were non-moms.
At one point.
Before we became moms. Yeah. We were all single before we got married. And it's why I wrote Fence Sitter and why I'm like still exercise this part of myself because I always wanted to approach getting married, but especially having children with this is just an addition to my life versus a subtraction of my life.
Well, I also think though you went into marriage and parenthood deeply self-aware because of the amount of work you had to do to come out of your addiction.
Yeah, to not die.
And to not die, right? Like that took some effort to not leave this mortal plane. I think you went into those things with a much deeper awareness of yourself and how you wanted to be in those relationships because you did that values work and you took time to understand who you are as a person. I think there's most people don't do that. And I think even with conversations like, is having a boyfriend embarrassing now, or single women are the happiest, demographic, there is still a victory lap that most women do when they do get married and when they do finally have a baby. There is a welcome. Like, welcome to the club. Like, there is that vibe. And I think it's something that you notice so strongly when you're standing on the outside of it.
Yeah.
Because you recognize that you're not in the club. People let you kind of come on a guest pass, but you're not in. And there's just always kind of this like, well, you don't fully understand. Right. And it's passively like woven through things. And I think, again, like I'm very lucky because the people who are in my circle are obviously people who are not that. And I am lucky. But I'm around conversations where that happens. And I think what was hard is I spent 15 years in a place where that was the conversation. And so I think I do have a slightly more extreme awareness to that and the recognition of how that makes you different, almost like a second class citizen, if we're being like honest. Like, well, you're kind of a waste. Like, what are you doing?
Well, I think it's fascinating, Sam, because when I imagine what it was probably like in Utah, it was like your life began.
Yes.
Right? When
Yes.
you got married and when you
Yes.
had children. Where I think what's interesting in a lot of other places, or at least it was experience in my life, and it's why I struggled so much with having kids, was like, I loved my life. I didn't want it to change. I remember being like furious at people who were like my friends who were having kids right away. Because I was like, I don't want things to change. And I know having kids will change. We won't hang out in the same way. We won't be walking distance to each other. We won't have the rituals that we used to have, for example. And I think that there was a lot of like grief that actually happened for me when I got married, not actually getting married, because nothing really, like, I lived with my husband. We literally bought a house together before we got married. Like, a lot of our friends all were married or had, were partnered. So that wasn't the grief. It was more just like everything's going to change. And I think we don't talk about that enough, of sort of like, if you have this good life in, for a lot of people, the timing of it happens in their late 20s, early 30s. There's a big shift that happens. And it is, I don't know, it's why when you were in Florida, I used to always joke about how I would love to just go to your house. And like, even I love visiting my friends who don't have kids, because it allows me to kind of like slip back easily into that life. And I don't know. It's just like, it was so, I don't know. I hated college, but my 20s, once I got sober, were the closest thing to what I imagine people enjoy college like, of where you get to be spontaneous and you get to see your friends all the time and you're walking distance to things. And it's so sad that we don't, that we grow up and we don't have that anymore.
Yeah, no, it is, because I think in the modern sense, everybody moves for work. People live different places. You're not tied down to one spot. And I think it is the expectation that at one point or another, you're going to change where you live, either because your spouse got a job, or you want to be closer to your family, or you hate where you live, or right. And so I think it's just, change happens so much more frequently now. And the change feels so permanent when it does happen. And it feels like when you throw in like, okay, now I have this other person that I have to be considering all the time. When you get married and then you have a kid, and it's like, no, like this kid literally needs me.
Yep.
Like I can't just like give up on that responsibility. I mean, people do, but it's illegal and you'll go to jail. But like it all shifts. And I think constantly our priorities are shifting and adjusting and changing depending on our lives. Right. And I even had to do it by myself, right? Like I had to do it because I had to realize like the place that I was just didn't fit what I wanted my life to be. And I uprooted my whole self when I didn't have to, right? Like I didn't have to pick up my whole life, like underneath the roots, rip out those roots and like replant myself. And then, they didn't like set in Florida. So I had to do it again. But I think what has been so overwhelming to me is there's two things. One, this was a life that for so long was a vision of mine that felt so out of the realm of possibility. I didn't even think about it. And just, I remember like telling myself like things that I would want to do and places I would want to go see. And if I had the option, I would do this. I would do that. I would, and so it's almost overwhelming to now have the ability to do that. And I've been like leaning into really hard, like pushing myself out of my house, even though I'm a homebody and I love being in my house. I'm like, no, like you need to go live now. And I feel like even though I'm 35, I'm living like how a normal 25-year-old would have, because I lived in a place that was just boring. The way my friends here have brought me in and how thoughtful they've been and how considerate they've been and the things that they've invited me to, like right off the bat. I cannot remember a single time in my life other than like childhood where like I felt this level of stability. And it's almost been, I've had to like allow myself moments where I let myself like settle into it and recognize that I'm almost not letting myself feel safe sometimes. Like I still kind of have this energy of like, it's going to go away. Like I'm going to lose this. And then to kind of be like, no, like you get to be here. You are here and it happened. And I think that's another thing I've learned about transition is the importance of letting yourself ease into it. And I think when there's a change or a transition that you've been thinking of for so long, you put the pressure on yourself that as soon as you get it, you should feel totally fine and it should feel completely familiar and great and life is perfect now because you finally got it. No. Your body needs time to catch up to your mind. And the physicality and the external reality of your world, your brain needs time to catch up to the fact that that is permanent. Especially if it's something that you've been like thinking of, right? And when it comes, it's almost like the relief is overwhelming. And if you haven't practiced holding space for that, relief feels really scary.
Yeah.
Because relief is vulnerable. And relief is one of those things that to ease into it means you're not prepping for catastrophe and you're not braced and you're not tense. You're relaxed. And if you haven't been that way in a long time, that is an odd space to occupy. And over the last couple of weeks, I've allowed myself some time to like be aware of, wow, I can't believe this is happening. And I let myself be like gushy and mushy and sentimental about it. And I think if you are going to be going through a change yourself, or if there's like a big looming change coming that you know of, right? It is okay that it takes your brain a second to like wrap around it once you're there. Even if it's good, even if it's what you want, like it's okay that you feel anxious right now because this is a big change and you're taking on a lot. It's okay. You know you can handle it, but that's different in like the philosophical than when it becomes like real. I've just really allowed myself that grace to ease into this, as happy as I've been, as light as I've felt, as like confident as I feel in the decision to come here. It was still a lot. Since we are knee deep in November, i.e. holiday shopping season, I am going to give you the cheat code to the best gift that you could give to anybody in your life. And these are the Cozy Earth bamboo sheet sets or the Cozy Earth bamboo pajamas. When I tell you these things collectively have given me the most comfortable sleep of my life, I am speaking to you with my whole chest. The material is like nothing I've ever felt in my life. It is a viscose bamboo and it is so uniquely soft and it has kept me insanely warm yet cool at the same time. I've sometimes struggled with getting really hot at night, and these sheets and these pajamas have made all the difference in the world to that. And also because of how comfy they are, they have made these cold fall mornings incredible. I cannot recommend them enough. And when you're thinking of giving somebody a gift and you're wanting them to have a gift that they are going to use every day, day in and day out, sheets are phenomenal. They also have a 100-night sleep trial, so you can try them out. If you don't love them, you can return them hassle-free. However, on night 2, You're going to realize you don't even have to do that. And they also have a 10-year warranty. That is how good this product is. You are going to have these sheets for a decade. Sheet for a decade. Nobody else is promising that. They are incredible. These are top notch. You can now stack my code Nuance. That's code Nuance, Nuance, giving you 40% off total your entire purchase. Use code Nuance at checkout to get 40% off your entire purchase and thank me later. Wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth. What have you learned from 2025?
I don't know. I keep thinking about this, Sam, because I feel like in some ways I'm kind of numb, which is a not normal feeling for me. 2024, not 2025, was sort of the year of the worst thing that I thought could happen in my professional life sort of happened, and I survived that. And then I was like really optimistic for 2025. And then it felt like a really terrible, one of the worst things that could have happened to me in my family life with my mom getting diagnosed with cancer happened. So I go back and forth between feeling a little bit bulletproof and then also feeling like maybe I'm just numb, because I truly, if you would have told me that this was the plan, I would have told you that I didn't survive. So like, I think it is just so, I don't know, like I know this lesson obviously. And as a therapist, you get the unique privilege of seeing the context of people's lives and seeing how people survive like the worst things like imaginable. So I think that in some ways I am like more sturdy. Like I do think that there are a lot of things that I would have freaked out about that don't bother me anymore because my capacity has just changed. But I'm also like trying to be mindful of not losing my humanity, not losing. I don't know. It's really hard to be like, am I being too negative? Am I being too numb? It's a weird, I just feel sort of in purgatory right now because my mom, she finished chemo. She had the surgery. It was successful by all means. But as you know, and people who's, you know, have experience with cancer know, it is just sort of like hanging over you and you can't really relax. So yeah, like I think like one of the big lessons is I'm trying not to put pressure on things. I like drove myself insane this year by being like, oh my God, how many more times am I going to see my mom? How many more times is this going to happen? How many more shopping trips, lunches, like all of that. And I lost my mind by doing that. And it's weird because you have to live also with your parent, like in terms of, you know, one day we're going to have to like one day I'm going to probably have to say no to her. I think I coped with it by being like, I'm going to be perfect. I'm going to be the perfect daughter. I'm going to show up perfectly. I'm never going to say no. I'm going to do everything I possibly can. And then at some point you realize you can't live that way for forever because you will go insane and you will drive other people insane as well. And you have to sort of just learn how to live in this purgatory. I feel like I don't have like answers yet because I'm still in it and I don't totally know. I mean, my biggest takeaway is truly like we are all so much stronger than we give ourselves the capacity or the credit for. And I say that also, I think with like the election too. Yeah. I'm like, if you would have told us all that all of these horrible, like I would have been like, I didn't make it.
We're not seeing the end. No.
And like, I don't want to say everything's fine because it's absolutely not. And it is scary because I don't want our capacity to change in terms of like, this behavior is normalized or we become numb to like the very real threats that are happening. But I just feel like there is this collision, at least for me, I'll add in my personal life, but I think everyone's personal life, you know, we all get impacted by what's happening in the world. And I do think we're at this like collective tipping point a bit with like, what else is there? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I keep coming back to with social media and stuff like that. If everything is rage bait, nothing is rage bait. At some point, if there's more negative things on the internet than positive things on the internet, with you add in AI, it's like, what does start to matter? Maybe things will come back a little more to things that matter in your real life and community and showing up for the people in your life, small things in your life matter. And I guess that's been sort of my whole theme that I've been circling around in my thesis is like we all spend so much time draining ourselves, driving ourselves insane over things that we don't have much control over. And then we don't have the time and energy to do the things that we do have some control over. And obviously that's not a revolutionary statement. You know, therapists have been talking about the locus of control for forever, but I guess that's just become a little bit more concrete for me because I think we think we're helping a lot of times online, especially with the blending of online and offline worlds.
I completely understand what you're saying. And I think what's fascinating about the locus of control is I think you don't really realize what it means until you go through something where you recognize how powerless you really are. And I think there's a lot of us that can, you know, for those of us that have our own varying levels of privilege, right? You can kind of go through life duct taped together with the illusion of, no, I can sway things. There's things I can do to make such and such better or fix this or do that or deal with that. And I think for those of us that are like high achieving, ambitious, perfectionist and or perfectionist adjacent individuals, we go through life assuming that there is no way there is not some type of like a solution to something. And I think if I may, as I've gone through something similar, having a parent get a cancer diagnosis is like hitting a brick wall in that belief system. And you realize like I am at the mercy of something that doesn't give a flying fuck what I think or feel. And it is just going to deliver what it is going to deliver. And I think there's a lot of situations where you hit that brick wall: grief, loss, political upheaval, collective problems, whatever terminology you want to put to it, right? It's escaping me right now. But I think you cannot recognize the concept of locus of control until you are put in a position where you truly recognize there is nothing I can do here. And I think to have to spend time settling into that truth and surrendering that is not an easy ego death to go through.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. I do think I've been able to sort of like make things happen in some ways or feel like I am able to. And I think that it does sort of level you. And it's, I don't know, I feel like what you've been saying too, Sam, about how at some point, right, we're going to have to like orienting ourselves in history, zooming out, right? At some point, the adrenaline is going to crash.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how I feel sometimes. Like I'm not burned out, but I don't know. I think it's so hard because my main coping skill is working. So I like fall back to it super easily. But I also feel this very intense pull of like meaning making and shout out to Chelsea Fagan and her being on the podcast. And right, like we've been circling around some of those topics. And, you know, I've been really trying to also think about how I have to build community in my life. And I need to, not because I should, not because it's like on paper. And I think that's the tricky thing is we're like, oh yes, we all know we should be building community, but it's because like I want to have those experiences. Like I want to look back on my life. And I think for so long I've told myself I want to look back on my life and look at all I accomplished. And that's true. But I also think, and maybe this is how we're like rounding out this whole episode, but like I want to also look back on my life and be like, I had fun. I know this is so strange, but one of my friends, her mom has been going to die for a while. She's like much older, so it was known, but like I read what she wrote about her mom and it was like the most inspiring obituary I've ever read. She said, my mom made finding fun a sport and she played it at a completely different level. For my 21st birthday, when most moms send a card, she said, skydiving, ? I'm in. Skiing double blacks in Aspen, I'm in. She pointed downhill and prayed for the best. Galloping full speed. Just another Tuesday. Swerving the convertible just enough to make the kids pee their pants laughing. Blasting I Will Survive at full volume. Every year she took us out for mischief night, ding-dong ditch, hysterical laughing, running for our lives. She treated adventure like oxygen. No one had more momentum or mischief than my mother. I'm so glad I got raised by someone who refused to live a boring life.
Damn.
Isn't that like the most incredible thing?
I think it's humbling to me.
Yeah.
To realize, like, what am I focusing on here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what am I choosing to put my energy into?
We have this capacity as humans to be all philosophical, right? Like for this like incredible joy that we don't take so often out of, because I think it's too much work.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
That's a lot of why I don't do things. And that, like, Sam, is how I feel when I'm with you and we're like driving in like your car and we're like going to see the Taylor Swift movie, even though we know it's going to be horrible.
It's going to suck.
Or like, you know, eating at a good, bad restaurant. Yeah. Or when you pee your pants laughing. When you, like, when we stayed up so late watching the Swiftologists
break down Taylor's album. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's humbling. It's just like, yeah, I'm too lazy to do that.
Yeah. Well, even like to get like woo-woo, and I know, Amanda, you have your own thoughts about the woo-woo, so you can unplug right now if you want me to just like carry this out. But I really do think we carry ideas and visions and hopes in our heart because there's a possibility for it. Mm-hmm. And I think if it wasn't a unique journey, everybody would have the same desires and hopes and dreams. And I know you listening to this have your own unique hopes and unique visions that kind of like keep you going every day. Just keep taking one step in front of the other to get to it. Even if the end vision isn't clear, it doesn't have to be. Because if you start to make these little decisions now, these little decisions that center you, and these little decisions that are coming from an authentic, self-aware place, that is how you start building the bricks to build a life that feels fully yours and feels that it's a life where you feel hopeful and empowered and purpose-driven. And I think, you know, the energy like I want to take into 2026 is just like nothing has to be off limits. And I know that sounds so freaking woo-woo and like cliche and weird, but I think we as women, you know, going back to what you said about the joy, Amanda, of and this idea of like embracing life fully. Like, what does that look like for you? What does embracing life fully look like for you? What is joy, even in the face of insane adversity, even in the face of what others would say is hopeless, right? Mm-hmm. What is that? How can you have more fun? How can you center yourself? How can you center things that make you feel like alive? Mm-hmm. Like that's what we're missing out on, I think.
I agree. Well, this episode was a journey.
Yeah, we went all over the place.
As always, we love you. We appreciate you. We will be, heads up, taking 2 weeks off, the week of Christmas and the week of New Year's. But we still have a couple more episodes before we take that little break.
As per usual, you know the drill. Anything you can do to rate, review, share, subscribe means the absolute world to us. That is how we grow. That is how we gain notoriety. That's how we continue to chart so that people can have awareness of the podcast. And also we have the Substack where we do deep dives and bonus episodes and extra content from me. Absolutely lovely over there. Lots of stuff that we're working on and we'd love to have you. That's nuanceneeded.substack.com where you can sign up, or you can just go to Substack and type in Nuance Needed and we will appear. So
we will.
That's all.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.